Sugar and spice and all things nice. Is that what little girls are made of? Slugs and snails and puppy dogs' tails. Is that why little boys study science? Well, apparently not. It is evident that in primary schools, boys and girls show an equal interest in the study of science. Why is it then that by the time they reach senior secondary levels, that only a minority of girls study physics and chemistry? In 1987, the Ministry of Education will have introduced the VCE, or the Victorian Certificate of Education for Year 12, and all students will need some maths and science at that level by 1990. This development will require significant changes in the content of science and the approach to teaching science if girls are not to be distinctly disadvantaged. In the studio today, we will be talking to Osman, Ursula Groves and Leonie Gianetto. They're from the McClintock Collective and they're currently working on ways to encourage girls to study science successfully. Leonie, what is the McClintock Collective?
Well, the McClintock Collective is a group of women who started up in 1983, the year that Barbara McClintock won an unshared Nobel Prize and was only the third woman to do so, so the name seemed appropriate. We got together at Rusden College of Advanced Education just as a group of women who were attending an in-service entitled Girls in Science, Why So Few? And we talked about the issues and decided that, or came to the realisation that the science that's taught in our state high schools especially is just failing so many girls that there was sufficient cause to work very hard for significant changes in the curriculum.
So why is it important for girls to study science?
Oh, a host of reasons, but I'll try and be brief. Well, as you said, the VCE will require that all students study a compulsory science and technology component. Mm-hmm. It's very important for all students to get a very well-rounded education. As we face a technological revolution, people are becoming increasingly alienated and feel that science is happening to them and they're not participating in science, and it's particularly true of women.
Could that relate to jobs as well?
Well, 80%, it's been estimated that 80% of jobs require maths science training, and female unemployment rates, especially in the younger group, indicate that because they have no maths science, or many of them don't have any maths science background, they're finding it very difficult to get jobs over the boys who've generally had that type of training at year 11 and 12.
Yeah, how would you answer that old argument that girls are possibly only going to become housewives and mothers anyway?
That's terrible, isn't it? That's just been used in such a negative sense. I'd just like to see it really positively. And in the positive sense, the girls will be, or many of them will become mothers. And if they have a really good science background and they're scientifically literate in the language and the concepts, then they'll provide positive role models for their sons and daughters, and maybe that's a really good way to affect social change slowly.
Well, so if it's so important, Anne, why are there so few girls in science classes?
There are a number of reasons. A lot of it is the nature of science. The girls find the language, the experience, they're just uncommon to them. So many examples rely on experiences that boys have. Boys are encouraged to tinker with things, take things apart, put them back together again. Girls are given a doll. And also I think the language of science, the words that are used, it's just very boring and irrelevant.
How are the words, the understanding of the vocabulary, why is that different for boys and girls?
Because often it refers to, I remember when you got on the motorbike, you rode your bike to school, you played with the soldering iron, all experiences that most boys have and very few girls share.
Ursula, when do girls start to drop science?
Well, most girls come into secondary school very keen and enthusiastic about science. But by year 9 or 10, they tend to take a backseat role in the class and
why is that?
Very passive behaviour.
Why at that particular level, year 9 and 10?
Well, I think this is a critical time in their adolescent development. At this stage, they tend to judge themselves and are judged by their peers as according to their physical attractiveness to boys and also their success in personal relationships.
Yes.
Whereas boys tend to be judged more by their achievements, I think.
Do you find that boys are more competitive?
I think that boys value different things at that time in their development. Girls see science as impersonal. They see it to do with things rather than people.
So if you ask the child what a scientist looked like, then he might have or she might have a stereo view of that, do you think?
Right. Yeah, the image of a scientist is very easily seen when you ask girls what they think a scientist looks like.
Yes.
Some of these drawings will show you.
Oh, yes. Certainly.
Have a look in this drawing here, where the scientist is male, wearing a white coat. There's something wrong with him. He's strange. He's certainly nothing that most adolescent girls would relate to.
I imagine a typical science, I suppose, is a guy with moustache and beard and everything.
Someone with a big coat who's sort of maybe glasses, I don't know. Someone who looks brainy. Sort of really crazy with a funny laugh and a big white coat and fly-away hair with little glasses. I'm pretty mean and nasty.
Well, I'm sure that most of us have similar ideas of what a scientist looks like. We'd also like to show you a short scene from a play written and performed by girls and boys in a Melbourne high school. This is how they experience the typical science classroom.
Last night's homework, who can remember what it was about? Yes, Damas.
So last night's homework was involved in finding out different types of energy used in our society.
Okay, Andrew, what did you find out?
Energy in the home. Example, the car battery runs on energy for the car.
But what type of energy is it?
I don't know. And this energy comes from
Girls
petrol.
up the back, be quiet. This is important. You might learn something.
And there are lots of different ways we use energy.
Where do they come from?
Alan, stop interrupting.
Hi-fi or TV.
Quiet, Stephen, although it was a good answer, just next time put up your hand.
We use it for pumps and electric fans.
Okay, that's enough, Andrew. How about somebody else now? Anna, what about you?
Me? Why me?
Come on, up the front.
Some of the energy uses that I found were that there is chemical energy stored in the batteries that can be used for...
Where did you copy that from? No, future.
That can be used for electrical energy like torches or radios. Another energy change is when we use electrical energy to boil water.
Oh, you wouldn't even know to boil water.
Quiet, Stephen. Would you mind repeating that line again, Anna?
Another energy change is when we use electrical energy to boil water. This is a change to thermal energy. We can have thermal energy involved in cooking cakes, which causes chemical change.
What a drop kick.
Okay, that's enough. Andrew, Luke, Glenn and Stephen, would you all mind going and collecting the equipment?
Oh, why do you always send the boys? I might break my nails, I suppose. Oh, look, they're taking the good equipment as usual. I bet ours don't work. God, look at those hogs.
Glenn, just take the lemon and go back to your bench. Maria, just get another one.
Steve, go and get a note.
Come on, it's doing that. Go on. Now we don't have to copy it. Now we don't have to work hard, man. Got it easy.
Sir, what to do with the copper electrode?
Haven't you read your notes? Go back and revise them. Now, after you've done that, the wire from the copper electrode goes around here.
Well, how typical is this of a science class?
Very typical. Teachers are often unaware of their own attitudes. We're often unaware of how we speak to the boys, whether we speak to them differently to the girls. They're demanding, they want our attention. We sort of go and help them first. Boys grabbed all the equipment. You notice they took all the equipment, and the girls are quick to realise that. The girls held back.
And it's okay for them to work in a really large group because girls work quietly and they're over in the corner, so, you know, you don't worry about them.
And you can spend your time with the boys because they're so loud.
And, yeah, and the girls up the back that are combing their hair and brushing their nails, I mean, obviously what they're doing in class is just not relevant. I mean, who wants to stick a couple recto or into whatever they were sticking into?
Well, what can you do about this? What strategies do you find successful to encourage girls in the subject?
Well, I think that there needs to be a basic recognition, as Anne was saying, that boys and girls have a totally different socialisation in science. And you need to ascertain where the students are at, all of the students, the boys and the girls, and you need to start off from that perspective.
And don't start off assuming anything.
Yes, just assume no prior knowledge and ascertain what they know and then teach them accordingly. Strategies that we've used that seem to work have been tinkering activities where girls can see that as being immediately useful because many of them have never used a screwdriver in their lives. Here you can see them, they're actually pulling apart, tinkering, pulling a machine apart, seeing how it works, where all the bits and pieces fit. They've probably had to use a whole different range of instruments, tools, Phillips head screwdrivers, other types of screwdrivers, hammers.
Obviously enjoying it.
Yes,
the
they're having
laughter
good
and
fun,
the
aren't
smiles.
they?
And they can go back and actually be confident and full of self-esteem that they can fix their clocks, their dad's clocks at home, and fix their hairdryers and that type of thing. Another
Gives them a sense of self-worth.
That's right. Another really useful thing is to buy enough kits for a whole class, especially if there's a mixed class, of Lego Technics. I think that girls just made a universal joint. So they start to learn the terms, what all these mechanical things are, and it builds up a huge amount of self-esteem. Here you can see they've used tinkering and a drama activity. Dramas are really powerful things for girls especially because girls like to personalise science and they really respond well to physically experiencing the science. Here they're doing a drama role play of being gears, which ties in with the activity that they were doing before. And they're studying gear ratios. Here they're doing a bit of drama. I think they worked out that they were going to be a giggle machine. And they had to all fit together and all move at the same time, much like you'd see a machine working at the same time.
So it's getting right away from that textbook approach of the past.
Yes, but then they'd go then and be able to study textbooks confidently.
Yes. Well, do you find it's easier with girls in a single-sex situation, perhaps, so they don't have the competition with boys?
Well, those girls we just saw then were in a single-sex group in a co-ed school.
Yes.
And that's a strategy that's been employed in quite a number of schools in Victoria to see if we can rectify the disadvantage that girls seem to suffer in science classes.
But of course, most schools being co-ed schools, what would you recommend? What strategies could you recommend for co-ed classes?
I think there's a number that we've all tried and lots of teachers are trying all the time. And I think a very useful one is using imagination and creative writing. The girls excel at this, the boys need practice at them. Get them to write, if I were an atom, I would. I'm a small shark, I live in the ocean, what do I do? Ask them to talk out their ideas, share their experience with each other, encourage participation, give them access to up-to-date career information, show them how important science is for the girls and for the boys. And also I think it's important to invite in visiting speakers, female scientists, to talk with the girls, to speak with the girls. As you can see on the video, there are a number of female scientists in different activities that appeal to the girls.
So you've got the role model idea here.
Yes.
Yes.
It's very positive, and I think it's very, very important to give the girls meaning for and reason to do science.
A bit different to the pictures we saw before, isn't it, of the typical male scientist. So what can parents do to help?
Well, often at parent-teacher nights you hear the comment, well, I wasn't any good at science, so how can you expect my daughter to be?
Yes.
I think parents need to encourage their sons and daughters to continue with science right from an early age. That kind of comment makes it so easy for girls to opt out, and it makes science seem hard as well. Parents should try to provide experiences for both their sons and daughters in a wide range of activities from an early age, and also buy them Lego. Also take an active role in making sure that they choose their career wisely.
There are catch-up courses, particularly in TAFE colleges, and now there have been ones developed specifically for women, because women seem to find it hardest to relate to their children's science books and help them with their classes. And that's also a positive step that people can take if they're interested enough.
Good. Well, then why was the McClintock Collective set up?
To try and get teachers to rethink the approach to science. It's no good getting more girls in science unless we make the science we teach interesting and worthwhile to the girls. It's a whole new approach, a whole new way of teaching, a whole new way of being in the classroom and enjoying what you're doing.
I think it's really important. What we're really aiming at is, as Anne said, to change the nature of science, to value feminine qualities in the broader sense, that girls do have creative skills and girls love history. There's no history in science textbooks. There's no history in science classes. There's no people in science classes. There were no people in those drawings that the kids drew of the scientists. There was a dog, but there weren't any people.
And a mad male scientist.
Yes, and imagination, the fact that you can make value judgments in science, not the idea that science is above value judgments and morals. I think...
and it's beyond the textbook. Changing the textbook's not going to change the quality or the nature of science. That's got to be a completely different approach.
Also, we've found that by using some of the strategies we've talked about now, that the girls have enjoyed learning science and they've got a better understanding of the science that they're learning. So we think that, you know, that more and more teachers should be involved in looking at the science that they teach from this point of view.
Well, thank you, everyone. It's good to see that some positive steps are being taken to encourage girls in this area. If you'd like some more information, contact the McClintock Project Officer at the Ministry of Education, corner of Waterdale and Doherty Roads, West Heidelberg, 3081. Telephone 034 500 We'll leave you with a few comments of some girls about the science in which they have been involved.
Science is really important because you need it sort of, if you want to fix something and stuff, if things break down, you sort of need to know what to do to fix things, not have to depend on other people to do it.
Well, science is important in everything because I want to be an artist and you think, oh, what's science need for that? But glazes, if you're going to be a ceramicist or something like that, so it's important in everything.
I found it easier to work in an all-girls class more than having a boy in it, or more boys in it, because they sort of take over and they, you know, distract the class or whatever. And, you know, like girls might do that too, but it's not as much. You know.
It's the boys' intimidation, but it's also being with the girls and seeing what we can do together and how we move ahead. Like, I think we've moved forward further together. It's really good because science is for everyone, and now we're getting ahead, and now I think that we don't feel so nervous, and so I think we can start having classes with boys and still feel as equal with them.
Victorian schools can obtain a copy of this program by sending a blank cassette and a dubbing request form to the Videotape Dubbing Service, Curriculum Branch 234, Queensbury Street in Carlton 3053. Interstate school inquiries can be made on 03 628 2113.